Who's there behind that mask? Smiles and tears forgotten in the past. But I don't care who you want to be, but show yourself, show them how you feel. Who's there behind that mask? Smiles and tears forgotten in the past. I don't care who you want to be, but show yourself, show them how you feel.
Right, what is up, guys? What is up? So this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start off the stream and just kind of talk about what this stream is actually going to be. So number one, it's been a long time. Well, number one, let me say hello, because I like Domir jumped in with God is Good Always, and I haven't had a chance to say this a lot, but I've been paying attention to a lot of Domir's posts, a lot of the things he's been throwing out there, a lot of his videos and everything. I love how much I'm seeing God move, man. I love seeing that connection grow. Not that you ever didn't have a connection with God, but it's just a beautiful thing, and I personally appreciate it. As somebody who usually forgets to comment on things, I just want to let you know that I see it. It's been beautiful, and I really appreciate it because it's lifted me up more than a few times. So shout out to Domier. If you guys don't know Domier and aren't following Domier already, you should change that and fix that. Fantastic. Shout out to everybody else. What up, Jay? What up, Alyssa? What up, Fireman? What up, Roxy? What up, Golden? So what is this? Number one, it's been a long time since I went live before 5 p.m. at all. It's been a long time since I really did a stream on YouTube that I intend to leave on YouTube. It's been a long time since I went live on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch at one time. And I will say this will probably be less of an interactive stream than what I usually do. Still be going live in the evenings with gaming streams on Twitch. Still Thursday nights on Twitch and Rumble. all that stuff. This is something, I don't know if it's going to be a daily stream. Here's the thing, I'm in a rut, and a lot of you guys who talk to me know that, like, it's been in the cards for a while that I want to do some kind of like current events commentary stream top deal thing, you know, with some kind of regular frequency. This may or may not be a daily thing that I do. I don't know. I'm a big fan of the commentary shows though, like the Tim Pools and the quarterings and all that stuff. I always get into that stuff, and I'm like, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions and everything that I would like to contribute. So we're gonna talk about the world during this stream. I don't know if it's gonna be daily. My hope is that it becomes something that I want to do daily, but it may just be a crash and burn. We may just do it once, leave it up. We'll see where the road takes us. It's only going to be an hour, and I know that the title says at noon. I didn't get this one started until closer to about 1:45, but it will be at noon for me Eastern time, kind of moving forward. So if you don't get to catch it live, just watch it back. That's fine. I just kind of want to get some thoughts out there and everything like that. So it's just a different thing. What up, Hillbilly? I know it's Tuesday. I do know it's Tuesday. Yes. So yeah, let's get into talking about some things. Appreciate everybody showing up with their morbid curiosity to check out what we're doing here. I don't want to Tyler the intro piece where I'm just talking about, you know, the things, and I dig into the weeds about the goals, expectations, plans, whatever. There are a handful of things that I want to talk about. I'm going to get into the handful of things that I want to talk about, and then we're going to kill the stream right around an hour. So I'm going to jump into it, I guess. I don't know. I've watched a lot of people do this, and I really sat here. I came up with this idea at about 11:30. I, jumped in, made a little thumbnail for it and everything. This went through some topics, went and got some coffee, drank some coffee, and sat and kind of like did my news reel. The reason I picked noon is because noon is usually the point in the day where I decide that I want to see what's going on in the world, and I start going through, various social medias and whatever. Also, I still need a haircut. I don't know that that's news, but I've been saying that I need a haircut for like 2 months now. Still have not got a haircut, and so hopefully that's a thing that changes before too long. But let's go on. The big thing everybody's talking about right now, if you guys haven't seen, one of the most hilarious things that I've seen is that have I watched the Candace Owens Kamala hit piece? I have not watched that, no. One of the biggest things that I've seen, though, that I have watched and I've actually actively been following has been this whole Joe Rogan thing. If you guys didn't watch Joe Rogan having Trump on, the Trump Rogan episode, it's a fantastic episode. You should watch it. Starts a little bit slow. I will say for about the first 30 minutes, I was a little bit frustrated at Trump. I feel like Rogan was really generous to him, talking about the weave, saying that he wasn't dodging topics, but in fact Trump was giving some very long-winded answers. You know what I'm saying? He was kind of getting off topic. He was being pulled back around, getting back on topic. I was frustrated with Trump for the first 30 minutes because in the past, I've had the perception that Trump doesn't actually understand a lot of the things that he talks about, leans on advisors around him to kind of fill in the gaps for him. And it felt like he was kind of reinforcing that a little bit. I will say after about the 30, 45 minute mark or so, Trump kind of got more conversational, became a lot more fluid, and felt a lot more genuine. And I was actually really impressed at how much he actually does know compared to the like my past perception with what I thought he knew. The whole thing was a fantastic episode, though. If you haven't watched it, definitely do yourself the favor of going and watching it, because I like understanding the people that are involved in the political process anyway. It's easy to say, yeah, I want to vote for the conservative candidate. You guys know that I'm a big fan of libertarianism. I would rather the Libertarian Party become a legitimate force in America, and I would rather that we actually had a third party option that was viable to vote for. So I'm not looking for a Republican or a Democrat, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is, in this election, I will be voting for Trump, obviously, because Kamala is a nightmare, and I do not think that Chase Oliver is a viable option to vote for president. Still think it's my opinion that Trump, maybe. So I'm gonna try not to dig in the weeds too much on comments. I'm still gonna read them. I'm still gonna come back to them. But while I'm on these, just to keep my trains of thoughts, because I rabbit hole like a MF, and you guys know that already. Anyway, the thing is, if you guys haven't followed that, the Trump Rogan episode was fantastic. Kamala was invited to do an episode. Even during the Trump Rogan episode, Rogan said that he hoped Kamala would come on. He wanted to talk to her like a human. I was actually really excited to watch that. And of course, Kamala kind of danced back and forth. If you guys haven't seen the update, Kamala actually counter-offered that Rogan should come to her rather than him go to her studio. Rogan should come to her, set up an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, and they should do it that way. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. I do. But here's the thing, and everybody is talking about that being ridiculous. I watched Timcast. Tim Pool was talking about, no, that's not the Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan doesn't come out. He doesn't do road shows. He doesn't do these things. I get it. I see it. I understand that. All that. I think he should. Here's the thing. Kamala sent that counteroffer knowing that he's not going to do the episode. And I firmly believe that Kamala does not have the endurance. She does not have the conviction in her policies. She doesn't even actually understand her policies well enough to do a long-form conversational episode in the style of the Joe Rogan Experience. I agree with that. I understand that. I believe that. And that's exactly why I would actually like to see Joe say, okay, you want me to come to you and do an hour-long show. I would like to see him set that up, go to her, do an hour-long show, because I want to see Kamala in that lot. I know a lot of the conservative commentators, a lot of the people who commentate on these things in general are saying, well, that's a violation of what the Joe Rogan Experience is. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And so, that's, I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea what format I want this show to go on, but I wanted to start there just because I see that it's trending. I think that it's interesting. In my 2 cents is I think that it would be actually interesting to see Kamala actually in that environment, even if it is only for an hour, even if it's not in Joe Rogan's studio, even if he has to come out to her and throw his game off a little bit. Her team said a couple of days ago she would be willing to take some days off. It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. Texas too close to the wall. That is funny. Maybe Kamala does have an aversion to actually go into the wall. Maybe she's actually afraid of being put in that environment. I don't know. Discussion on how to deal with the national debt was I actually liked that discussion. I want to see that actually... Here's the thing. Trump, going back to the Trump episode of Rogan, Trump actually has the most fleshed out stance on dealing with national debt. I think that's probably what he seems to understand most out of any policy that I've heard him talk about and propose. But going further than that, it's actually a valid stance. And I don't often say that a lot of things that Trump says sound like valid, defensible positions, but that is actually a very valid, defensible stance where he threw out how much you're worth, how much leverage you have. That whole conversation, he actually, in that moment when I was watching him discuss that, I actually felt like Trump was the most qualified person in all this discussion to be president. Interesting thing, though, still on the topic of the Joe Rogan Experience, and that was the next thing that I pulled up. So there is actually a story over here. Apparently now the Trump campaign is doubling down, and JD Vance will be going on to the Joe Rogan podcast. And I didn't actually flesh through all this. He will tape an interview with Joe Rogan on Wednesday. So did any of you guys, if you didn't watch the episode with Theo Vaughn that JD Vance did, you should definitely go watch. I'm going to make this bigger. I usually look at things at a smaller resolution, so I'm going to make this bigger just so you guys can actually see what I'm reading. If you guys didn't watch Theo Vaughn's interview with JD Vance, that was a fantastic interview. You should actually go back and watch that. JD Vance is somebody that I've been interested in. I've watched him talk. He's an extremely intelligent guy. I feel like he's actually read up on policies. I feel like he brings a lot of credibility to Trump, and it's a really good legacy because after Trump, obviously the vice president is always going to be the person who everyone is looking at as the next Republican candidate for president. We didn't get that with Dick Cheney, obviously. Of course, George W. Bush was the last Republican president before Trump. Theoretically, we would have gotten that with Mike Pence if Mike Pence wasn't just a log. But we have JD Vance now, who actually seems like a viable future president in the vice president seat. I like the exposure that he's getting, and also if you on the Theo Von interview that he did, that was very eye-opening to me because I've watched JD Vance give a lot of speeches. I've watched him do debates. I've watched him now, in a setting where he's expected to be professional. I hadn't actually seen the very human side of him. He is extremely human, and it was extremely satisfying to watch him sit down and have that conversation with Theo Von. I won't dig into it too much. I will say he's got a potty mouth, which surprised me, but if you haven't watched the Theo Von interview with JD Vance, you should definitely do yourself a favor and watch that. It's insightful. Yeah, to HBR's point, I've never heard a vice president candidate drop F-bombs, and he fluently is dropping F-bombs. He's calling things bullshit. He's calling, it's a whole conversation. And again, if you haven't dug into it, if you don't know a whole lot of JD Vance, I think it's a really good opportunity to get to know JD Vance. Ballot boxes being burnt and problems in Virginia and Pennsylvania paper ballots. So I saw the Washington and Oregon ballot boxes being burnt. That's crazy in itself. I mean, and that was one of the things I was going to talk about during this, but I decided not to. I think it's funny when you look at the actual, number, or if you look at the registration status of people who are showing up for early voting this time, whether it's in-person early voting or if it's by ballot mail-in, there are actually a large number of Republicans early voting now compared to in the past. I want to say I had it pulled up. I closed it because I decided it wasn't something that I was going to talk about during this. But if you look at it, it's something like 400,000 more Republicans are early voting this time compared to in the last election, which is insane to me. Voter ID all around needs to be law. I think that's something that I kept up that I was going to get into. Yeah, no, it is. It's actually the next thing that I'm going to get into. Like I said, I didn't come in with a real format for this. So apologies if this is not the cut and dry professional product that you're used to. We'll get there, guys. We'll get there. JD is very articulate and breath of fresh air. I'm actually more excited about the next election. I think we'll finally get off this generation of candidates for the last 30 years. I agree, actually, and that's what I was kind of building into there, Domi. I am super excited about JD Vance just because I appreciate that. Jay, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Hopefully it is an enjoyable thing. Hopefully this is something that we start doing often. But JD is very articulate and a breath of fresh air. I agree with what you're saying. And it was actually the thought that I was having specifically while I was watching Theo Von was that I'm super excited for what comes next now. Because JD Vance, here's the thing, everybody wants to throw Kamala as the young candidate. She's the hip candidate. She's the candidate of the future. The funny thing is, JD Vance actually seems like that candidate. JD Vance got me excited as well because I feel like JD Vance is actually a future for politics to move into, where I don't feel like I'm looking at somebody give me the same boring rhetoric again and again that I've been hearing for every election cycle since I don't know, at this point, what? So 2016 was when Trump really kind of entered this, and Trump had been a discussion in politics prior to that, but 2016, if you think about it, that is 8 years ago. this is three presidential election cycles now that Donald Trump has been the main fixture on one side. And if you go even further back, since Joe Biden was the vice president for Obama, that is since what, 2008? Since 2008, since the Democrats really had a fresh figure. Go back even further, the 90s was Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton was the first lady. So really, it's been since the 90s since the Democrats brought anybody new. George W. Bush, you had all the Bushes, you had Jeb, all that coming into play for the Republicans. You had John McCain, and Mitt Romney was the fixture throughout all that time period. They were also in the conversation in the 90s because they were in the same conversation as George W. Bush. When you really come down to it, to Domier's point, it has been almost 30 years, really, since with the exception of Trump, since the political pool for the presidency got mixed up to the point that we weren't just voting for the same roughly 6 people over and over and over. For most of us, that's the majority of our lifetimes, but for a lot of young people, that has been their entire lifetime. And that's the biggest breath of fresh air I think that comes out of having JD Vance enter this, because when we look to 2028 and on, JD Vance should be the fixture. I don't consider Bob Dole, he doesn't count, but I feel you. I get what you're saying. Hope that Dems don't offer a Gavin Newsom or AOC next time. I really think the AOC, if JD Vance ends up being, so here's the thing, if Trump wins, if JD Vance is the next face of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party will absolutely have to back themselves away from the ultra-liberal stance that they currently have. They cannot move in a more progressive direction the way that they have for the past 20 years. If JD Vance becomes the new face of the Republican Party. Also, come election day this year, the 2024 election, if Republicans overwhelmingly win, there is no way that the Democratic Party can continue to exist as it currently does as an ultra-progressive party. That will kill the future aspirations of a lot of people like AOC, like Ilhan Omar. That is going to destroy the future of them. That said, if this election day is not overwhelmingly in favor of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party still has an opening to continue and move in that progressive direction that it has in the past, I really think the AOC becomes a very prominent figure as a future figurehead of the Democratic Party, being a presidential candidate, being a vice presidential candidate, whatever the case may be. AOC is absolutely the future of that party. Now, Gavin Newsom may be the less extreme option that they decide to go with, but I don't know. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, when it comes down to election day this year, and this is one of the things, as somebody who loves libertarianism, as somebody who wants a viable third party, I am selling out my values to vote for Donald Trump this year. And I'm doing that specifically because I really think that everybody, whether you're independent, third party, whatever stance you have on that, everybody we have to see the Republican Party overwhelmingly win this election, because the Democratic Party needs to understand we do not have room to continue existing and keep moving into this ultra progressive direction that we have spent the last 20 years moving into. Absolutely, we have to show them that America rejects progressive extremism. Now, one lovely thing that I appreciate, social media now cannot continue to exist as it has existed and stifling statements like that. If you guys didn't see, Section 230 got repealed. YouTube can no longer enjoy their status as a platform free of being sued if they are going to continue to control the type of content that exists on YouTube. That's why I'm very excited and hopefully will become more active on YouTube. Federal judge ruled on that in the past few days. So that's exciting news. So you actually may see Republican commentators in general at this level, not the Tim Pool level, not the Steven Crowder levels, whatever. YouTube is going to have to refine their stance on that. Google may get broken up soon. Yeah, that's the other thing. Google is very much looking at being potentially broken up right now because there are too many things housed under one roof. But moving on, I want to get to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, because like I said, I'm limiting myself on this stream to 1 hour. The next thing, have you guys seen what's going on in Virginia? Virginia is filing an appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court immediately after a federal appeals court ruled to uphold the halt on the effort to purge potential non-citizens from the voter rolls. So, if you guys haven't seen, basically what happened, the governor of Virginia purged a ton of voters right there, going out, He purged their voter registration because he said that they were illegal immigrants, and they very well may be. Here's the thing. I think there's an underlying thing here, because I feel like this is one of those stories that has been framed to us all a certain way, depending on which side of the aisle that we sit on, who we consume media from. And so I looked into this, because obviously illegals should not be able to vote. Period, point blank. But if you look into it, apparently one of the reasons that this came out the way that it did, the state went against the governor because they did not want any valid U.S. citizens who were incidentally removed to be held away from voting. Now, I get it. That's politics. They're using that justification to try to get the illegals back on the voter rolls, whatever. Here's the answer, and this is what it comes down to, and this is going to be a really short discussion. I just wanted to bring this up to show people that it's going on right now. At the end of the day, one of the things that we need to be the most vocal in advocating for, and truly we do need to look at advocating for it at our local level inside of our states. States run the election process. If you do not know, each presidential election, each election that you see is independently ran by each individual state. So you're not voting to the national parties. You are not voting to a national election. You are looking at your state and what they require. Every state, we should absolutely be going to everybody that we can talk to at the local and state levels and advocating that we see legislation in our states requiring voter ID laws, because this does not become a problem. The issue that they are having in Virginia does not become a problem if everyone who votes is required to have an ID. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to show an ID that proves residency as a U.S. citizen. At that point, you do not take a chance of taking legal voters off of the voter registration. I understand the issue that they're coming down with, because it's a 90-day window before the election where they don't typically remove people's voter registration status. I get it, because you cannot register to vote in the upcoming election within a certain window in certain states. But if we just got a mandate in our individual states, all 50 states have a mandate that in order to vote, you have to have a voter ID. We would absolutely solve this problem. We would not see this problem in Virginia. We would never see it in Kentucky. We would never see it in Louisiana, Mississippi, California. It would never become an issue again. And I think that that's something that we absolutely have to poll our representatives to be introducing and bringing into law. There is no downside. You have to have an ID to buy alcohol. You have to have an ID to buy cigarettes. You have to have an ID to get on an airplane. Why should you not have to have an ID to vote? That is a conversation I think that is completely simple. I think that we are all on the same page about that. But the big thing is the solution, rather than just point out the problem and linger on what the issue is, the solution to everybody. If you have not, you can call your state legislators, you can call your federal legislators. You should absolutely be calling your representatives, your senators, and making sure that if your state does not have state voter ID laws, that they are implementing those voter ID laws. They are trying to work on legislation to get those voter ID laws. Where do I subscribe without commercials? Subscribing on Twitch gets rid of the commercials. Let's see. Happy Mississippi was one of the first states to do voter ID. Every state absolutely needs to have voter ID. It is crazy that that's even a conversation in 2024. I like the meme. I just closed it, but there was a meme on Twitter that somebody posted that said the same people who expect you to have a vaccine passport to get on an airplane are the people saying you don't need to have an ID to vote now. And that's absolutely ridiculous because it's true. They want me to have a passport that shows that I've been vaccinated with X, Y, and Z in order to get on an airplane, but I can go to the election, I can go to the polling place on election day, vote for who's going to run this country for the next 4 years, and they don't want me to even have a driver's license to get there? That makes absolutely no sense. That makes 0 sense. I don't understand it. And probably because my entire life I've always had to show my ID to vote, and so I've never had to do the alternative there. I don't know. Hey, let's go. Appreciate the gift sub, Jay. To Richard. Let's get it. Appreciate that, man. Now you have no ads, Richard. All right, the next thing, and this next thing is something that I've been wanting to do for a while and kind of bring up. And it's not so much a thing, so much a news, so much a section. I just want to talk about the current electoral college layout right now. So I saw this on Twitter, and this is what actually sparked me to get here. It said, breaking: if Trump wins Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia, he would have a 93% chance of winning the election, assuming the candidates keep their other 2020 states. Yeah, I get that. And that makes sense. That's 100%. That's just math. So I pulled up the Electoral College map, though, because I wanted to look at this. I wanted to look at really what is currently being considered in play. So my face is going to hide part of this. The only one that you can't see underneath, there we go, there it is. So if you look at what's in play, it's Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And I started really just looking through and thinking about what's going to happen and where. Here's the Georgia. I will be very surprised if Georgia is not a red state in this election. I mean, maybe if you guys have have more ties to Georgia than I have, maybe you can tell me that I'm a little bit off base with that. I'm a little bit crazy. I'm coming out of left field, whatever. From everything that I've seen, everybody I know in Georgia, driving through Georgia, I spent last weekend in Atlanta. Everything I've seen and interacted with in Georgia, to me, says that the majority of people support Trump. But even if you look historically, Georgia is a pretty conservative area. I cannot see Georgia voting for Kamala. Biden barely won Georgia, and Kamala, I feel like, has less credibility at this point in the election cycle than Biden had on election day. So when I look at it, to me, Georgia is going to be a red state. I don't see any other way of going about it. When I look at North Carolina, again, North Carolina does traditionally flip. I feel like there's a lot of negative sentiment right now toward the Biden administration from North Carolina, specifically because of the disaster relief with the hurricanes recently. And if you look, Trump was the one who actively advocated for those people, helped them. Trump and Elon came together to support the people who were really affected by the hurricanes recently. Is my YouTube chat not? I think my YouTube chat stopped updating. Oh, it did. My apologies, guys. I have not been ignoring you. I just didn't notice that you were talking until it just showed me. I saw the stream preview on the screen. Wisconsin is definitely up in the air. I feel like we are going to go red, but I do see a decent amount of Kamala signs, sadly. No, I get that, and that's why. But that's why I'm going right here, because so with Georgia and North Carolina, that puts Trump at 251. He needs 19 points at that point, and really Pennsylvania. I feel like Pennsylvania was locked in when the first assassination attempt happened. At that point, if North Carolina and Georgia, which I think are pretty locked for Trump personally, go red, and Pennsylvania goes red, nothing else matters because Trump is already at 270. So Trump becomes the president with just those three. Now, if you take those away, because Pennsylvania is still very much in the air, I've looked at it, I don't think Nevada is in play. I think Nevada is going to be a blue state. Nevada is usually a blue state. I would be very surprised if Nevada is a red state. I do think Arizona will be a red state. And Wisconsin is in play. At that point, Wisconsin, if Pennsylvania goes to Kamala, Wisconsin becomes the most important state. Everyone keeps talking about Michigan. I think Michigan is firmly going to be a blue state. I don't think Michigan is in play. But if Arizona goes red, Nevada stays blue, Pennsylvania goes blue, then Wisconsin is in play, or Wisconsin decides the election. However, one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is questions about Virginia. If Virginia were to flip, which apparently there's a lot of sentiment that says Virginia may flip this time. If Virginia were to flip, everything else becomes less important, because if Virginia becomes a red state at that point, and Georgia and North Carolina are both red, at that point, Trump could literally just win Nevada, lose Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, and still become president. But I don't think that that's going to happen. And so when it comes down personally for myself and for what I see coming to play, and I will tell you, I find it very unlikely that my stance on this is going to change before Election Day. I really think that Georgia and North Carolina are locked red states, and I think that Pennsylvania is also going to be a red state, even though it's not what I would call a lock right now. And if that is the case, if I'm not wrong, nothing else matters, because those three states will absolutely decide the election. Now, it would be good if Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona all went red as well, because at that point, then there's no question. It is possible for it to be 269 to 269. It is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. Wasn't Virginia red last time, or was that just election night? Yeah, that was just election night. Virginia, in national elections is pretty consistently a blue state, and it's specifically when I don't know if I can't zoom in on this. If you zoom in on Virginia, it's specifically the DC suburbs that cause it to be a blue state, because for the majority of the state, the rest of the state is actually a fairly red state. But then you get up into like Fairfax County and stuff, and it becomes an extremely liberal area. Hold on, I can probably find that pretty easily. Let's see, Virginia 2020 election breakdown, or Virginia by county election results. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So when you actually look at Virginia by county, and Biden won it pretty handily on the overall. When you look at the actual state of Virginia, though, it's all of these tips. It's up here around Alexandria, which I believe. Hold on, let me not speak ignorantly. I believe, yeah. So that would be the DC metro area up here around Alexandria. Then you get around Richmond. Of course, every major city is going to end up being a little bit more liberal, but overwhelmingly around DC, 70% to Biden. In Fairfax County, 62% Prince William County, Loudoun, 61%, all that. When you get around Richmond, 83% to Biden, and then down here around Virginia Beach, which Virginia Beach is actually a little bit closer. But if you ignored like Fairfax County and the area around Fairfax County, then you find that the rest of the state of Virginia or Commonwealth of Virginia is pretty overwhelmingly conservative. And so that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that really shifts Virginia. That's why Virginia hasn't typically been in play. But there is a lot of speculation that this time around Virginia will actually be in play again. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that you need to lean on it, because if everybody keeps the locked-in states that they had from before, then 100% with Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, Trump is the next president. I think Virginia and the Carolinas go red, and Texas, New Mexico, Nevada may be all red because of border policy. Possibly. I mean, there's a good chance. The thing is, I think that Trump could actually pretty overwhelmingly win this election. Number one, if you guys haven't seen, Trump is actually winning the national popular vote polling. So according to polls, Trump will actually win not only the electoral college, but will win the national popular vote as well, which would be devastating to Kamala Harris. But I really want to see a blowout. I want to see the Democratic Party shown that the world is tired of progressive woke ideology. Not the world. America is tired of progressive woke ideology. I'm personally tired of progressive woke ideology. I think most people are tired of us moving in this generally more progressive, inclusive. The thing is, I love everybody, and everybody should absolutely have their own stance, their own, right to live and enjoy freedoms and life in the world. But we do not have that in America right now. We have gotten so tied up in accommodation and in really reverse racism, reversing policies that were harmful in the past and going in the opposite direction to make up for lost time is what it seems like. So hopefully we turn that around. Hopefully we move against that, and hopefully the Democrats see in this election that America is tired of it. I was in Virginia. Let's see. We're firemen. A lot of Californians moved to Texas and still have those values. Yeah, but Texas is not in play. Texas will not be a blue state. Texas will not flip to a blue. Now, I'm not saying that it won't in the future at some point be a purple state. Texas is not a purple state in national elections, though. Absolutely not. Let's see. I think that's actually everything. Yeah, that's everything that I pulled up and brought and wanted to talk about. So I guess we'll just spend a couple of minutes talking, and then I'll kill this and I'll let everybody get about their day. But when it comes to the election stuff, I think that Kamala speaking is hurting her. I love how often, so Trump has been doing all these interesting interviews. One that everybody looked over is that Trump was on the 6 Feet Under podcast with Mark Calloway the other day. That was a fantastic interview as well. If you guys don't know Mark Calloway is the Undertaker, or was the Undertaker. He's retired now. If you guys missed that podcast, if you're interested in watching Trump actually speak on some things, that was actually a really interesting podcast. And if you want to see Trump seem human, Trump spends probably the first 10-15 minutes of that asking Mark about wrestling things, how things went in the WWE and all this stuff. The Undertaker was always my favorite wrestler, so obviously I always enjoy listening to him talk, but that conversation was it was fantastic. There was a really interesting part, though, near the end where Mark presses Trump on what he would do about trans athletes performing in women's sports, and Trump very emphatically says that is one thing that he really wants to address, and that he would start by banning it outright, and there would be no more women or no more trans athletes competing in women's sports. And I think that's a huge thing too. I think that that's something that we're not really giving the attention that it deserves, because absolutely it's unfair to these ladies who are at a biological disadvantage. He mentions that there are records that have stood for 50 years that are that are just falling out of the blue because a trans athlete comes and has a genetic advantage out the gate and demolishes a record that has been unreachable for so long. And I think that's something really important. They talk about that in a little bit of depth. So if you haven't watched the 6 Feet Under podcast, in general, Mark Calloway, I think, is an interesting guy. I enjoy watching the conversations that he has in general. But the one with Trump is actually pretty interesting. It hasn't gotten a lot of plugs. Nobody's really pushed it out to go and watch it and check it out. And I personally enjoyed it. I did not realize that Mark Calloway's daughter was a quarterback. I did not realize that female football was actually a popular sport, so that was news to me. However, she apparently is, and that's cool. But it's funny because if you listen to Mike Obama, apparently, you know, Trump is ducking interviews and Kamala isn't. I don't know. Kamala makes herself look bad every time that she gets out and talks, though. And I really think that national sentiment is very in favor of Trump this time around. I don't necessarily understand what shifted that, but there's just a feeling when you see people talk, when you see people interact, when you see people really going into the political space in general right now. I don't know anyone, not personally, and I haven't seen anyone that has a truly great feeling about Kamala Harris. I don't know. Came from a middle class family and worked at McDonald's. Did you see that McDonald's actually invited her to come and work, and she seems to have declined? What up, Tech? Trump has gone back to his 2016 ways of getting away from mainstream media. That is what's helping a ton. No, absolutely. Fairfax is 100% liberal. Yep. Let me double check Rumble. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of new things. So I'm gonna wrap this one up, I think. Perfect timing because I actually just got a phone call and it's almost time to go pick my kid up from school. So that's about it. This very well may be a new thing that we do every day at noon. That's my goal for it anyway. I don't know. I'm not going to promise that because every time I promise I'm going to do something, I end up talking myself out of it. But this has been the first episode of however frequent or infrequently this becomes a thing. Hopefully it's frequently. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully tomorrow I'll remember to run Stream Raiders for the limited time that we are here. And if you guys want to see certain topics or anything like that, I don't know. Make me aware of them and I'll probably throw them into the mix. I don't really know how I'm going to mine my topics. I literally did it today from a mixture of what was trending on Twitter, what showed up on the first page of the Drudge Report, and then a couple of other topics that were kind of popping up for me on a couple of different social media sites. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it moves. But that's all for now. I'll be live later this evening. If Fireman is still down to play Phasmophobia with me this evening, we will be live with Phasmophobia on Twitch this evening. If you guys want to hang out there, do some gaming things. Hopefully Tech pulls his tampon out of his ass and he'll join us as well. Like, share, subscribe, follow. It's your boy DJ AlphaTyler. I hope you are staying safe, taking care of yourselves, and I'm gonna catch you guys next time.